With the end of the year holiday season kicking off soon, lots of people will be looking for ways to refresh their digital signage or maybe just add some holiday fun into digital designs. Design themes can help with both of those, and to talk about that today, I'm joined by Debbie DeWitt, Marketing Communications Manager for Visix. Hi, Deb.
Hi, Derek, and happy 100th episode of DSDR.
I know. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening to this episode of DSDR, Digital Signage Done Right. 100th episode. Woohoo! Fireworks, fireworks. Don't forget, you can subscribe to this podcast, and you can follow along reading the full transcript, which is on the Visix website under Resources, Podcasts. Whether you're using digital signage or not, our podcast gives you practical tips for communications and content to better engage your audience. I'm Derek DeWitt. Welcome to Digital Signage Done Right. Okay, Deb, so what is a design theme?
A theme is just a set of visually coordinated elements. You want to design so that everything matches and is consistent across mediums. When we're talking about digital signage, that can include your layout backgrounds, message backgrounds, templates, artwork, all the stuff you're using in your designs.
So like basically you make sure like colors, your images, your fonts, everything works together, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So why would you want to use a design theme on digital signs? Why can't I just remember what I did?
Well, a lot of people don't remember what they did, or maybe they weren't the one designing it. And the reason you want a theme, the reason you want all of your elements to be consistent is, as we've said, I don't know, let's go with 100 times.
100 times.
If your screens look bad, people are going to tune out. So if you're using templates, applying a theme can ensure that everything goes together visually, but it's also important because that way, no matter who's filling something out, anybody who's posting a message, it's all going to look good together.
Right, and it kind of streamlines the process if you have multiple content contributors, I think, as well. It's a little bit, I don't want to say you're idiot-proofing it, but you are making things more standardized and therefore faster.
Yeah, exactly. You're saving everybody time and headaches, especially if like you're trying to control your branding. You want to make sure your look is consistent with all your other marketing and communications efforts. You know, you don't just want something out of left field using some PowerPoint template or something that no one's ever seen before and doesn't match. It's also a great way to differentiate your screens for like different areas or locations or seasons. You know, you can have your Miami office use one set of designs, you can have your New York office use another, maybe it's down to the department like HR, but you know, all of those still need to have that top level company or organizational branding.
Don't you run the risk then of, wow, everything's always the same and therefore people start tuning it out?
Well, not if you're doing it right. I mean, that's why we're talking about a refresh, you know, and especially with holidays, that's a way to make your screens look different and it grabs attention because, as you said, if the same thing's up there all the time, people are going to tune out. So this can give you some more variety. I mean, you might design one theme at a time, but you're going to want to change those up periodically.
Okay. So what kind of themes can we make?
Well, there's really no limit. I mean, it's graphic design, so your imagination is your limit. As always, it's really about what makes sense to your audience and to your brand. We're always reinforcing you need to know your audience, so do something that appeals to them. Some common design themes for digital signs that we've seen are based around branding, obviously using your identity colors, your logos, and graphic elements. And most brands actually have two colors at least. So, you know, if your colors are blue and green, have a theme in blue, a theme in green, so that you can change it up periodically.
Sure, that makes sense. And you mentioned seasons earlier. I think that's quite interesting. Obviously, we think of, you know, fall and spring being the more colorful ones, but that's an interesting thing to do.
Yeah, we see people do it for seasons or even for semesters. If it's a college campus or a K-12 school district, they might change it up for different periods of the year. You can also, like we talked about, holidays are great. You know, you want to do Halloween or Independence Day, have a whole week with a different look. You can also do monthly themes for things like Black History Month, Women's History Month. Again, there's a lot of inspiration in holidays and seasons, things like that.
Yeah, like I think around the, the end of the year, winter solstice stuff, you know, there's Christmas, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff in there too.
Yeah, and a lot of that might come down to individual content pieces, but your overall design theme could certainly be something like a winter background or a more festive background that then the messages celebrate all those different holidays.
And you said locations. What about like even inside of a particular campus or even a particular building? Could you have different areas like departments and things color coded sort of or thematically coded?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. You could do it by locations or buildings or floors or even down to the department. I mean, that is a lot more work. So I will say you don't want to have like 20 themes going on, and they do all have to tie together and again, be under that corporate umbrella. But definitely like one theme for public facing signs and another for in-staff areas. That's a really nice differentiator, especially in something like retail where people are popping back and forth a lot. So that way they could instantly, their brain switches from, oh, that's the public advertising to now this is a staff announcement from HR.
Right.
Also, manufacturing plants might have one theme for the production floor and another for the offices. Again, it's whatever makes sense to differentiate the screens for the audience.
Oh, I guess that makes a certain amount of sense. And keep in mind, if you share the same playlists across different locations, you're going to make sure that the backgrounds match that theme, right? That's where maybe like having two branded sets can come in handy.
Right. Again, you could do blue on green one place, green on blue the other,
Right.
or even better, use PNGs with a transparent background, then you don't have to worry about it.
Right, right. What about animations or video? Is that part of a design theme?
Yeah, that could be a great way. Again, we were talking about that sort of winter background. If it's like a really gentle snowfall or something, or maybe in autumn you've got leaves, but a little animation in the background is always a good way to draw the eye. One idea is to have like one photo with 4 different color tints, for the different seasons. Or if you are using animation or a video, the same thing. You can tint it differently. You could have a lens flare or something that is consistent, but have some visual element that ties everything together.
Right. When we say video or animation, we're not necessarily talking about, a video like you see on YouTube. It could just be, like you said, a lens flare. Like, hey, in this theme, it's a blue lens flare. In this theme, it's a gold lens flare, so on and so forth.
Yeah, and the important thing is you always want to keep those animations, if they're on a layout background, you want to keep them really subtle so they don't interfere with whatever's on top of them, your other messages, event schedules, and that kind of thing.
Right. The purpose of the message is not, hey, lens flare. The lens flare is to make people, oh, what's that? Oh, interesting information.
Right, somebody in a waiting room, I'm blind!
You're right, yeah, exactly. So where can you get design theme ideas from? Where are some places for inspiration?
Well, visual inspiration's kind of everywhere. You have the entire world to inspire you. We'll go ahead. I know that's a lot. So
just go walk around.
That's true. Actually, go to art galleries, look at paintings, look at different color palettes. We'll include lots of links in the transcript, but Google's definitely your friend. If you Google design themes, you're already going to get a ton of inspiration right there.
Sure.
Colors are a big one. I do this all the time. I want to do a new infographic or a PowerPoint or whatever, and I'm like, okay, I want a color palette that looks really good together, but not just the same 5 colors I've been using. So both Pantone and Color Hunt are great websites for finding palettes that work well together.
Right, and every year Pantone has a color of the year, which I see each year when they choose whatever color it is. It starts sneaking into design elements and ads and TV and things like this.
Yeah, like everything else, design definitely follows trends. And, there's a big difference between one year it'll be all very, sort of gray tones of colors, and another it'll be back to pastels or very bright things. So if you just Google color palette inspiration, you'll get tons of images, and you can actually just pull those down and match them. And if you're working in Adobe Illustrator, you can actually load different palettes into the UI from their little stock library.
Right. Now, of course, I think another thing people like to play around with digital signage message design is fonts.
Ooh, be careful.
But be careful, yeah. Don't get crazy with the fonts, okay? You can do something maybe kind of fun for titles, but it really does need to be readable. People need to be able to see it from a distance and identify the words. It's not going to draw people in to do something in crazy, Eastern Gothic script, especially in the body of the text, and people are sitting there squinting at it going, what does it say?
Yeah.
Because your message is only going to be up for like 7 to 10 seconds.
Yeah, it has to be readable. That's the number one thing. And I will say fonts are probably going to be the one where you have the least amount of play, is my guess. In your identity guidelines, they're going to want you to use certain fonts.
Sure. And there are lots and lots and lots of websites with free fonts available on the web, but you can find them just, Google free fonts.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as other design elements like shapes and, where you put things, I mean, I hate to say it, you need a good design eye. We've got other podcasts, we've got white papers, lots of stuff on design, but if you're not a designer, go ahead and get a graphic designer to help you. You can always look at poster designs on the web since you're basically designing a digital poster. There are a lot of PowerPoint templates out there. believe it or not, I've been looking lately at a lot of pitch decks for TV and movies. They're great designs. So just get a lot of inspiration by looking at images. And of course, you can look at our own web pages on Visix.com. We've got a gallery there with inspiration. We've got videos. Even if you're going to the grocery store, I get inspired by wine bottle labels. I do. I will buy a bottle of wine.
It's the label. That's why I paid $30. It's the label, not the contents.
I don't know about the $30, but I will say when I look at 2 bottles of wine and I can't decide, I'm going with the one with the better label.
That's how my mother used to choose American football teams the same way. She loves animals, so she liked the Dolphins, the Bengals. She didn't care about the players. She just liked the animals that were their mascots.
Oh, we've gone to the horse races, and I choose the one I like their names. I don't know anything about that horse or that rider.
Yeah, that's true. And it's interesting. We've been talking a lot about Google, and we're not shilling for Google necessarily, but we don't necessarily just mean Google. We mean any search engine, the one of your choice. But sometimes when I'm making like social videos for Visix and things like that, there's a concept I want to get across, like stability. And I'll type it into Google and then look at what images people have used recently to represent stability. And sometimes it's quite surprising. Sometimes you're like, oh, I hadn't thought of that.
Exactly. And things like that are probably going to come into play more when you're doing individual announcements or messages. But for a theme, you can certainly go out to Pixabay or some of these other sites and put in winter, and that'll give you some good ideas.
Yeah. So, of course, this podcast is, run by Visix.
Visix Property.
Visix Property, copyright Visix, 100th episode, I'd like to say again. Access TV Signage Suite is the dominant product that you guys sell. Can you design themes in Signage Suite?
You can in Access TV Design, the desktop designer. That's where you usually do your layouts. It's where you do any kind of a message that's pulling in data from the outside. So you can create layouts, messages, and templates with the same look and then group them together by theme. Like when you do it in the folders and you put your keywords, you can tag them so that someone could find all the things that go together. And we already have lots of templates in the CMS grouped by color. They come with the software. So if you're like, well, this actually matches my brand color, you've already got, 40 or more templates right there. And we've even got some that are like black or white on top of a transparent background, so they'll match any theme.
But keep in mind, folks, this is not Photoshop. Access TV Design is not for other things. It's for Signage Suite software.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, you can layer things like in Photoshop, but it's flat layers. You're not going to get soft edges and layer masks and things like that. And I'm probably getting way too far into Photoshop for this. What? But you can obviously pull in and arrange the different elements. And with our widget controller, you can have your layout background change based on certain conditions. So one of the greatest examples I've seen of this is a weather message. It's pulling in weather data, and depending on whether it says it's sunny or rainy or cloudy, it uses a different background image.
Oh, I mean, the weather app I use on my phone does the same thing.
Yeah, and again, that is in the Signage Suite software, so you can do a lot of this design there.
Okay, now what if I don't feel comfortable designing a theme? It sounds daunting and very official and permanent.
That's just because I talked so much about Photoshop. If you can't, then get design help. If you're not comfortable designing from scratch, again, look at PowerPoint templates. They actually have not only the templates, and there are a lot of free ones out there. They've got stock ones, but there's a little designer tool that'll pop up. If you put something into a slide, it'll suggest different layouts. Again, you probably have some PowerPoint templates for your organization that your marketing team or somebody who's controlling your branding has already designed. So that's a good way to start.
Sure. And of course, make sure that you're following good design practices for digital signage. You can find a lot of that advice in some of the previous 99 episodes. I know I'm beating that horse, but I'm rather tickled. 100 episodes. I can't believe it. It's kind of crazy.
It's great, and we're not done yet.
We're not done
yet. So that brings me to my last point, which is if you're not comfortable designing a theme on your own, obviously our award-winning creative services team can help you. So what they'll do is they'll talk with you about your branding and get your design preferences and any examples you want to give them, and then they'll give you those layouts, messages, templates, and artwork so that you can put them into your system. You own the artwork, even even if we created it in something like Photoshop, we'll give you the working files, which is a big differentiator. Let me tell you.
Big differentiator.
Or we can even implement it for you. So you basically just, when you go into the software the next time, everything's there.
Like magic.
Like magic.
So design themes are a very useful thing to use when creating and maintaining a digital signage system. It helps you maintain consistency. It helps reinforce your brand, and it makes things a lot easier for multiple content contributors. And most importantly, it makes your screens look good.
Yes.
Yes, which is very, very important. So for our 100th episode, I don't know if I mentioned that already.
Yeah, you might have once, twice, maybe 7 times.
Maybe 100 times. I've been talking to Debbie DeWitt, Marketing Communications Manager for Visix, about digital signage design themes. Thanks for talking to me, Deb.
You're welcome. It was great to be here.
All right. So now we start the next 100.
Yes.
Thank you again, everyone, for listening to this episode of Digital Signage Done Right. And don't forget that you can get the full transcript on the Visix website. For more free stuff, head to resources on Visix.com for guides, videos, and more to help with your visual communications. Please subscribe and share, and contact us for information about our digital signage solutions.